begin. So good evening. On behalf of the Foundation for Saline Area Schools, my name is Kurt Ellis, and I am the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources with Saline Area Schools, a proud Saline High School alum like several of you, and tonight I have the opportunity to be your Master of Ceremonies. One of the most enjoyable parts of this weekend is the opportunity to see longtime or lifelong friends. We're still learners, those of us who work in schools, and those of you who were at the first one, remember I said I like to see old friends, and that didn't go over so well, so we now talk about lifelong friends. We catch up with lifelong friends, former co-workers, and people we haven't seen in a long, long time. It's really hard to believe this is our 5th Hall of Fame induction ceremony, and we're really fortunate tonight to have a number of our former Hall of Famers that have elected to join us tonight. And so if our formerly inducted Hall of Fame members could please stand, I'd love to give you a round of applause. This weekend has been made possible with 2 key partnerships. R&B Plastics, who have been a fixture in the community of Saline since 1980 and a longtime supporter of Saline Area Schools, and A&H Lawn Care. We would like to specifically thank Bill and Amy Long and Fred Piercy from R&B, as well as Tim Austin, who is also a Saline High School alum, for their generous support of the weekend. Before we begin dinner, I would also like to thank Angel Food Catering and Mike Maynard, who is also a Saline High School alum. You might hear that once or twice tonight. For providing the food for us. So Alex Shupo, who is over on my far right, the left of this room, will dismiss 4 tables at a time before you go ahead and get food. The only thing we'd ask you to get over, you can form lines on both sides of that table so you can get through there and get back to your tables. We will begin the awards part of the ceremony at 6:30. So thank you and enjoy dinner. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and get started with the awards part of the program now. I know some of you are still wrapping up dinner, and that's okay. Feel free to continue to eat. But we wanted to go ahead and get started with the awards part of the program here. Prior to dinner, I mentioned the 2 key sponsorships or partnerships that have made this event possible: R&B Plastics as well as A&H Lawn Care. And as you go down the hall at the end of the evening here, and you actually see the Hall of Fame display, you'll notice that it was sponsored by Old National Bank. And so on behalf of the foundation, we'd like to thank all of our business partners for their sponsorship. Let's please give them all a round of applause. So some of you who are being honored tonight have asked kind of where the concept of this Hall of Fame started from. And so about 5.5 years ago, a number of us that were on the alumni committee were talking about ways that we can honor people who have recognized or done tremendous things for our community and for our school district. We came up with 3 categories of people that we wanted to honor: distinguished alumni, distinguished educators, and folks who have done distinguished service. And we looked for folks to graduate. The alumni had to have graduated at least 5 years ago, and so the 2 people that are here tonight certainly met that standard. The distinguished educators had to have actually been retired. We don't necessarily do Hall of Fame recognition for people who are actively employed by us. And then last but not least, the distinguished service are people who made exemplary contributions to the community of Saline. When we review the nominees, we look for people who have gained recognition in their respective field or endeavor or made noteworthy contributions through their distinguished service. We look for people with exemplary character and integrity, and people who exemplify the mission, philosophy, and principles of the Foundation for Saline Area Schools and our alumni committee. With this group this year, we will have 37 people in our Hall of Fame. And for those who might not be familiar with Saline, or who might still think of Saline as this small farming community, when you talk about people who have done great things, you might think it's difficult for us to find people that have done this. But of our 37 people, we have 3 who have been recognized by their respective coaches associations as Hall of Fame members. We have 16 former educators with at least 30 years of experience teaching the district. Think about that. 16 people that had taught here for 30 years or more who are in there. We have business owners, highly successful I knew there'd be a word that would get me. Philanthropists, and 3 world-renowned fiddlers. Certainly a Broadway actress, somebody who performed on the Primetime Emmys. Needless to say, a pretty neat group of people. As we introduce the fifth class of the Hall of Fame, I'm confident you'll find these individuals are more than deserving of the recognition they are receiving. Deborah Budnick, who taught in Culinary Schools for 31 years, could not be here tonight, but is very deserving of the recognition she's receiving as well. The first individual who is here tonight is a gentleman by the name of Michael Young. Michael's a graduate of the Saline High School, class of 1985. I know that because I was fortunate enough to be a classmate of his. Unfortunately, I didn't see Mike or didn't stay in touch with Mike for a long time, and I happened to be watching the news one night, and it was during this Ebola breakout, and on CNN, there was Mike talking about Ebola. He was working at the CDC at the time. And so Mike has done great things in the field of infectious disease and making hospitals safer places for patients and physicians alike. So our first inductee here tonight is 1985 graduate Michael Young.
So I actually speak a fair bit from people at CDC, but I was talking with my wife this morning and realized this is the first time that I'm doing this since I started to wear Bible, so I'm not quite sure how this is a big year for me, and not just because of this award. In March of this year, my wife Karen and I saw the birth of our first child, and as every parent knows, life's been a little bit different since then. I have found myself thinking a lot about how I want to raise him. And the more I think about how I want to raise my son, the more I realize that I would like to do so in much the same way I was raised in this community. And I guess that means I'm pretty happy with the way things turned out for me. A lot of that had to do with my parents and my family. But a good portion of it also had to do with the friends that I made in Saline and the community of Saline going through the Saline school system. And I realized that it says a lot when I start thinking about the best way to raise my son and my family and the best place to do it. My mind naturally goes back to the place where I was raised. This year also marks the 15th consecutive year that I will get together with a group of about 10 close friends, ostensibly to watch the Michigan State football game. We tell each other that it's to watch the football game, but it's more to spend time together, get to know each other, and catch up. We are from all over the country: Atlanta, Boston, Seattle, Michigan, and one unfortunate soul who lives in Columbus, Ohio. And we do all sorts of things: medicine, law, education, engineering, and business. But one thing we have in common that all of us did, we all attended the significantly smaller version of this building down the street in the 1980s. We're all from Saline. These are some of my lifelong friends. They are, to this day, some of my best friends and some of the best people in the world, I think. So when I think about these two things, when I think about how I want to raise my son and the friends that I have from Saline that I've had for the past 30 years, it makes me realize how lucky I am to have had the opportunity to grow up in this community and go through this school system. And that brings me to the third event this year, which it hadn't been for the first of Harlan, might actually been the highlight of the year for me, and that's this award. I think about all the people who have won the award, this award, previously, and I think about the people in this room today who are being recognized this year. And when I think about all they have accomplished and what their contributions have been, it makes me especially happy to be counted in their company. This is a very important thing for me. It's a very personal award. It's something I'm very happy to receive. I have some other awards up in my office in Atlanta. I think I have a piece of paper that's maybe signed by the president, but it looks more like it's just been stamped by the president. But among all of those, I think that this is the most special one to me because I know the company it places me in very well, having grown up here and having known a lot of people who have won it previously and who are to say I'm very grateful, and I'm very, very honored to be recognized for this award today, and I thank you very much. And I want to send a special thank you to the person who nominated me today, and that person knows who she is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. The second individual we're going to recognize here tonight is Dave Johnson. And for those of us who graduated from Saline, Dave was an inspiring teacher who not only challenged you to learn content, but challenged you, I felt, to become a better person. And so it really was heartwarming to see his name come through as a nominee. And so without further ado, David Johnson, 35-year teacher in Saline Area Schools.
Thinking of what introductory technique I should be using, and I'm reverting back to the speech days that I had to teach kids in. And I'm sure there's plenty of you out there that said, oh my gosh, should I use the question? Should I use the quotation? Should I use personal experience? What magic do we come up with on that? But for me, it really is looking out at this audience to a person. I just am overwhelmed with coming back to the connections that I had the opportunity to make here. And in talking and conversations, we've all agreed among our distinguished educator nominees this year and inductees, we all had each other's kids. And who could have asked for more than to have our kids have the experience of each other? And I'm looking at Jennifer and Jeff. They met in Bob Phillips' orchestra. And here they are. And it goes beyond that. And with Mike Smith and my daughter Jennifer with cross country, when we started out, Marlene Weintraub, who I know was one of the driving forces to me getting recommended for this induction. Marlene, when we first started here in Saline, we had every child in the 7th grade. She had it for English, I had it for social studies. When I left Saline 15 years ago, I was teaching 1 out of 4. That's the growth that this community had taken during those years, and I know so many of you out there sharing that same kind of growth. We started with a Class B school, and to a person, all of you included, we gave these kids Class A experiences long before this became a Class A school. I'm so proud to be a part of those beginnings and those initiatives that we started here and are being honored by all of us tonight. And so, in just keeping with that, we again had such a golden age, and these students that we had, you gave us the cream of the crop. I know we set the bar high, but then they went beyond it. And that's the kind of thing I will always cherish, is the win-win situation I felt we always had. Looking at this building, we said too, we never could envision having this kind of structure for us to teach in. And yet, for me, being in the middle school, we always got the hand-me-down school. We started at that building down there on, the Union School building, the brick building. And then, what was the next building we went to? We got the old high school. That became the middle school. And then, a high school, and I actually had the chance to get to the high school for a number of years, so I was blessed by having both experience at the high school level and the middle school level. And I got to tell you, it was just a wonderful thing to be able to go back to my belongings at the 8th grade. They were my favorite group, and I was fortunate enough to be able to get back and have my own daughter on the team that we had back in the middle school. So my years here in Saline, between the high school and the middle school, I can't thank you all enough for giving me the opportunity to take these students in Saline as far as they could possibly go, and to just sit back and say, this is why I teach. So thank you again for that opportunity and for this evening and the chance to be recognized along with my fellow teachers and educators, distinguished as they may be, and the community people who have made a difference for us here. Sandy and so many others. I can't believe I am part of this class. We are just so honored to be here tonight. And so thank you again.
from Saline area schools last spring, and if you were to go to Woodland Meadows, you would have a hard time believing she retired. I think she's still there every day. I know her dad is still active. She is with and around kids at every opportunity, and those who have had the opportunity to work with her through the years have been very, very blessed to do so. So, without further ado, Betsy Mark.
First of all, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Foundation for Saline Area Schools for this wonderful evening. Can we give them a round of applause? Actually, this wonderful weekend. A special thank you to Emily Stickler and Lisa Dempsey, who really took the lead on these last 2 nights, so thank you both very much. I'd like to congratulate my other class members. To be in a class with one of my all-time favorite crew mothers and helping parents, a former first grader, and so many of my son's favorite teachers and soccer coach. That makes this honor even bigger and better. I'd like to thank my husband and son for always being supportive, well, most of the time, of my late hours and weekends spent working at school. I feel truly blessed to have spent my entire teaching career teaching first grade in the Saline area schools. I did teach in 4 different buildings, sometimes multiple times, with 9 different principals. Tonight, I have here Ellen Ewing, Jess Stevenson, Kim Van Hoek, David Rapp, and Michelle Chikowitz could not be here tonight, but I thank you for always being there, being so helpful, supportive, and putting the students first at all times. During my 40 years, I've worked with wonderful colleagues. However, I spent 32 years in first grade working next door or close by Charlene Stoddard. My last 8 years were spent working closely with Dr. Cardell Lantis. I thank both of you from the bottom of my heart for helping make working, planning, learning, and teaching so much fun for me. I cannot forget the countless classroom volunteers, room mothers, para-educators, cadet teachers, student teachers, and community businesses that supported my classroom and special projects over the 40 years. Without a doubt, I retired from Saline with a heart full of wonderful memories. As Winnie the Pooh said, and I quote, "How lucky I was to have something that made saying goodbye so hard." However, with that being said, I truly have adjusted to retirement and am enjoying every minute of this new chapter in my life. No longer a teacher, but now known as the lunchroom lady. Thank you.
We've been fortunate to have some phenomenal lunchroom ladies through the years, but none like you, Betsy. The fourth individual we want to honor tonight is Sandy Natick. And if you don't know who Sandy is, when you walk into our school buildings, take a look at the plaques inside the buildings that talk about who was on the Board of Education when those buildings were either built or renovated. And you'll see Sandy's name on the overwhelming majority of those buildings. Sandy was a longtime board member, parent of several outstanding children who came from the district, and apparently a great room mother as well. Didn't know that when we got her nomination, but Sandy's mark on this district is significant and long-standing. So we'd like to introduce you to Sandy Natick.
One night, it's been wonderful. Last night, I had so many people that I hadn't seen in a long time. And I can say, like so many other, this class is amazing because every single one of us have interacted in some way, individually with our kids, and it's just, I just love being part of this class. So that worked out so nice. 31 years ago, Cheryl Peck had the vision and the perseverance to start this foundation, the idea, and carry it forward. And she's had tremendous support, and now we have Ann Hurst, who I think will do equally as well at championing it and moving it forward, making it bigger and better. And I think that the school system itself. When I was on the board, it was 28 years ago. It's hard to believe it's been that long. It seems like I was just there. But in those 28 years, I was on the board for 16 of them. And so there's been a lot of years since. And yet the school district just keeps building on everything that we have. We've got wonderful parents, wonderful staff, wonderful community. We've got lots of interaction between all of those groups. And that's what's going to help keep Saline schools moving forward and keep it the really good school district that it has been and continues to be. So I am very proud to have been a part, a small part. We had amazing leadership from Ellen Ewing during that time, and we worked hard, but we had so much fun doing it. And we laughed at times and said it was almost for us like Camelot. And it just kind of came together in a way that no one could have ever expected, and it just worked really, really well. And everybody respected each other, and we had support staff, we had teaching staff, we had administrators, we had people in the community all come together and work on various projects. We started the Saline Leadership Institute, we started the Coalition for a Quality Community, we did quality training with St. Joe's at that time, and actually did some lot of school work with a group of Willard Daggett and traveled around, and they used Saline schools as kind of a model to move forward, and we learned from a lot of other school districts. It was just a great learning period of time for us. So I am going to introduce my children, which will make them like, when they were in school, and I was always from like room mother, class parent, PTO, so I was always hanging around. And I would see them coming down the hall and I'd be like, oh my gosh, there's Mom. Get out of the way, I don't want to see her at all. I don't want her to see me. But I am going to make them acknowledge that they're here. So our oldest and his wife, Eric and Christy, and they're from Sagatuck. Then we have Mark, just retired from 24 years in the military, starting his career, lives in Oklahoma. His twin brother Brad, 24 years in the military, new career, he lives in New Hampshire. And then the youngest guy, who was mistreated his whole life by his three older brothers, made him very strong, is Jeff. And he and his wonderful wife, Katie, they live here in Saline. And I know a lot of you know Katie, so she's kind of following, doing all the stuff that I used to do. So it makes it great and fun. And my last comment is having Betsy have Bryce and Brigham. You left too soon, I hear. There were two more coming along, but you have to quit sometime. They see you in the lunchroom, right? So that was fun because Betsy had Jeff in first grade. Jeff's the only one of our kids that went through the entire school. Thank you very much. This is a great honor. I love it. I'm really happy and excited to be a part of the group.
At this point, we are going to take a short break, let's call it 15 minutes, to go ahead and use the facilities if you need to. We also have a dessert to be served over there. There is some cobbler. So if we could plan to start back at 7:05, we'll finish with the rest of the program at that point. Thank you. As you may have noticed this evening, there are a number of people here that are taking pictures. Immediately to my right, walking away as fast as he can, is Tran Longworth from the Saline Post. If you go to a Saline event, whether it's an educational activity, an athletic event, anything to do with the city, Tran is there. He is one of the hardest working people I know, and as a community, we are extremely fortunate to have him here, so we can please give Tran a round of applause. We're also fortunate tonight, we have Kayla Swanson. I don't know where Kayla went. She's sneaking while she's in the back there. Kayla is an intern from Concordia University, who's working with the foundation, who I think volunteered kind of to come tonight. I'm sure as a college student, there's no way she'd rather spend Saturday night anywhere else. But, come to this event tonight and help us out, so thank you, Kayla. And then last but not least, we've got our Saline High School video crew here that are videotaping the event. So thank you to everybody who's helping take pictures. As we get into the second half of the recognition portion, the first individual we're going to recognize here tonight is Bob Phillips. And Bob was instrumental, pardon the pun, in the, that just happened, I didn't do that. I would never have done that. But Bob was really foundational, how's that for a better word, in our music program. And again, for those of you that are familiar with our school district, music is an integral part of what we do. And Bob was a very, very important part of the foundation. And so I told him the other day when I spoke to him, when we went through these nominations, we had Bonnie Wright out in our first class, we had Bradley Phillips in the class, we had Becca Schweitzer, who's danced and done some things on Broadway. We had all these people that have been involved in the music program, and yet Bob hadn't been. And as near as I could tell, he was kind of like that super popular, really attractive student that everybody thought had already been invited to the prom and hadn't been, and they were all afraid to ask him. So we're really excited to have Bob in this class and happy to recognize him here tonight. So Bob Phillips.
So if you've ever been to a Saline concert, you know that brevity is not my thing. I'm also going to do a little reading tonight, and I spend most weeks of my life on the road speaking to teacher groups, and usually without notes, but tonight I've got a few people I want to thank. I was concerned I might be a little emotional, so I'm going to do a little reading. I'd like to express my deepest thanks to the Foundation and the Saline area schools for this evening's special honor. Saline is a place Pam and I called home for 27 years. We started our adult lives here, raised 3 wonderful daughters, Becky, Sarah, and Katie. Becky, Tony, and family are here tonight. And 4 of our grandchildren are also here. We also have the privilege of working with incredible students, parents, and colleagues while in Saline. There's one special person here tonight that more than any other made the orchestra program at Saline Fiddlers possible, and that is my beautiful wife of 46 years, Pam Phillips. What you may not know is that for many years, Pam handled all the administrative tasks and planning that goes with running a large music program. Her relentless attention to detail freed up the emotional and headspace for me to be creative both as a teacher and composer-author. She truly deserves this award as much as I do. Thank you, Pam, for the difference you made in the Saline community. I would also like to congratulate my fellow award winners tonight, friends one and all. The interconnectivity we share may not be apparent to everyone, but we all had each other's children, siblings, and even several of tonight's recipients in class. Our lives have been intertwined in deep and meaningful ways. It is with some trepidation that I start the process of thanking people, as I have no idea where to stop. That being said, I'd like to give a special thank you to Martha Brossett and David Walter for hiring a 22-year-old wet behind the ears kid out of the University of Michigan. Martha and Dave were great early mentors for me and valued friends. I also have to say a special thank you to my lifelong friend and colleague, John Mason. We spent 25 years building a band and orchestra program together. If I searched the whole world over, I couldn't have asked for a better friend and colleague. I'm sure this is hard to believe, but in those days I was often jumping in where angels feared to tread, and John was always pulling me back from the precipice, so thank you, John. There are so many people that changed my life in Saline, but there are 2 in particular I have to mention. They inspired me to be a better teacher, but more importantly, a better human being. They challenged me and supported me in ways you can't imagine. Both of them are the definition of integrity and leadership. Paul Tebow and Ellen Ewing, thank you for changing my life and making my career possible. Words cannot express how much you both mean to me. So thank you, Ellen. When I was job searching and interviewing during my senior year, I remember one of my professor's advice when he said, "You'll be tempted to take a more prestigious job at a big high school with a developed program. Don't do it. Go out to that little farm town and build it yourself. You'll learn more in the process and be a better teacher for it." Truer words were never spoken. That learning process would span the 70s, 80s, 90s, and the 2000s. I remember my first day on the job when Kay Gunther gave me some advice. "Young man, be careful what you say, because everyone in this town is related." I found that out on the first day when I went to call roll and realized that once you said Phil can't marry and Pinkbinder and Birdmeister, you pretty much had it covered. In those days, I was introduced as the new band director for the first 5 years as people learned learned how to say orchestra and strings. Of course, Celine has grown and changed greatly since that time. It was very challenging and exciting to be part of the growth as we evolved and embraced new educational theories and ways of doing things. Some were good, others didn't pan out. In the end, our administrative team and staff always tried to move forward, positively affecting student growth and change. One of the things I often say about Celine teachers is, you have to be really good to look average in this district. Thank you to the Celine area schools for providing such an incredible environment for me to grow as an educator and artist. This amazing laboratory made so many things possible for me. I spent the last 20 years writing method books in music for school orchestras and bands. This includes 21 method books and 200 pieces for orchestras and bands, all birthed from my Celine area schools experience. An experience that has allowed me the opportunity to work with some of today's greatest film composers, rock and pop stars. These were skills that were developed and honed in Celine as I developed specialized materials for my students. The other part of my second career has been traveling the world doing in-service training with music teachers. What a varied experience having the opportunity to work with teachers from all 50 states, Europe, and Australia, the entire country of Australia 9 times now. In the last several years, I've been working with VH1 to help at-risk students in such places as Newark, New Jersey, New York, other large cities. Last year, I was giving a keynote speech for the instrumental teachers in New York City at LaGuardia High School, better known as the Fame School. There I was standing on the stage in front of hundreds of music teachers speaking about engaging children. In that moment, I couldn't help thinking about my first day in Celine and the amazing journey I was about to go on. Since leaving Celine, I've been blessed to work with teachers throughout the country and directly impact many students, all because I was embraced by a very special community 42 years ago. A community where I learned and was mentored by so many amazing colleagues and administrators. 3 of those teachers are receiving awards tonight. They are all truly master teachers who inspired me by setting impossibly high standards for all those around them. Thank you for your great work and friendship. I'll just put in parenthetically, if you ever want to see what excellence is, do a musical with Dave Johnson. Sandy Natick, the educational reforms you led from the board, along with Ellen Ewan and others, were transformational for me. It taught me that win-win was possible. 2 years ago, Becky Green, Sheila Graziano, along with the Celine orchestras and fiddle groups, put on an amazing tribute concert just down the hall for Pam and I. 1,200 people attended. We were very touched. Alumni orchestra with former students coming from all over the country performed. When I had the chance to talk with the alumni that night, it was an incredible testament to the Celine area schools. They were bright, engaged, articulate people leading really productive and interesting lives. As teachers, we all know that education ultimately is an imaginative act of hope. At least at night, I felt as if the Celine area schools' hopes and dreams for students were all realized. Mission accomplished, FSAS. On Friday, I spent some time speaking with various bands and orchestras at the high school. While there, I noticed the circle poster of student outcomes from the district and asked Nate Lampman about it. He let me know that these were the new goals that Celine is trying to achieve with students. I was very impressed as they were not test-focused, but centered around skills and attributes of people the Celine area schools hopes to produce, and were all life-focused. Education is the show that never ends, an ongoing process that requires thought, creativity, and energy. Just as our country is constantly trying to create a more perfect union, education requires unrelenting forward progress. The most important question I ask myself every day as a teacher in Celine was, am I preparing students for my past for their future? The Celine area schools in our country has been involved in a continuous state of reform for decades, as it rightly should be. How do we prepare students for their future? How do we prepare them to lead productive lives? That is a question truly worthy of a great nation, as well as a great school district. Congratulations to Superintendent Graydon and the Celine area School Board of Education for asking the right questions. The future of the students in Celine is bright indeed. Thank you again, Foundation, for this great honor, and to the Celine area schools for the opportunity to be part of something bigger than myself, the opportunity to serve, and in a small way, to make the world a better place for children.
Thanks, Bob. Now you know why Scott and I and the rest of the administrative team begin a lot of our meetings by saying, don't screw it up. We had some great leaders in this district through the years. The next individual we're going to recognize here tonight is Ken Stearns, and Ken is the co-founder of the Celine Area Soccer Association. It's hard to believe in 2018 that there was a time that soccer wasn't big in this community, but there was. And through Ken's effort, his diligence, we have now a world-class soccer program to go with the world-class programs we have in all of our other areas. Ken shared with me today, he went out and spent some time with the youngest soccer players in the community, and what a tribute it is to be able to see kids all over the community playing the game that you so love. So, Ken's turn.
Well, my middle granddaughter said that I should go. Thank you, everyone. Toodaloo. Sorry, kid. But first of all, I would like to thank the foundation. And I don't know who nominated me, but I was so surprised when I got the call from Kurt that I was nominated for the Hall of Fame. And I tell you what, I got to congratulate every other Hall of Fame person here tonight, because what a distinguished group we have here in Saline. And it reminds me, and I stole this testimony from our mayor, Brian Morrow. And Brian said, you know, basically people come to Saline, families, businesses, investments. They come to Saline because of world-class schools, and that's what we have right here in Saline. So let's give the school another hand. Got to go through a little bit of a history, and some of you out there may remember this history. And this was before we had the Saline Area Soccer Association back in 1989. And we got together, some of us, and we decided, okay, we'll go and play in the Ann Arbor Rec Soccer Association. And so we had 22 young boys that came with us, and we were called the Panthers. And what did this, Ann Arbor Rec department do? They gave us pink shirts. Okay, so the Pink Panthers, great. Yeah, and that was great. We liked it. And the thing that we went on to do was to win every game that we had. Were we asked back the next year? No, needless to say. But we decided, okay, the interest is here in Saline, so what we're going to do is we're going to form an association right here in Saline. And, here's the point in time where I've got to give some shout-outs to some people, and some of these people are no longer with us, but we got to give shout-outs to them anyway. We went to the City Council and the Parks Board, and we said, we need a place to play, and we would like to choose Mill Pond Park. And there was a lot of hawing around and everything. And two men jumped to the forefront, Harry Miller and Ralph Swennerton. And they said, we got to give these kids a place to play, and we've got to say it's going to be Mill Pond Park. And so that's where we had all of our games. Now, if you ever get a chance, go out to the rec center and look at that small soccer field behind the rec center and look at the memorial for Harry Miller and look at his accomplishments for the city of Saline. But those two men, they were instrumental in giving the Saline Area Soccer Association a place to play. And they're no longer with us, but they were great guys, no doubt about it. Next, I got to give some shout-outs to some people who made, Saline Soccer what it was, and what it still is. And Kaylin Liston and Tom Kervin from the Saline Reporter, every week they would take pictures. They would have stories in the Saline Reporter of the little kids that were playing soccer. And that's what Saline Soccer was all about in the early days. Having a rec league that would have kids have the enjoyment of playing the greatest game in the world. So those two gentlemen were very instrumental, very. Then we had people like Jackie Rowe and Dr. David Janda, who we did a study with the Saline Area Soccer Association with padded goalposts to make the game safer for kids. And that was actually written up in a sports journal, sports medicine journal, and it was certainly a thing that did make our sports safer for the kids. Next, we got to go into the high school program, and I got to thank Clem Corona for allowing us, he was the AD at the time, to be a club sport. And I can remember him saying, Ken, I want you to do everything that the varsity sports do. And in 2 to 3 years, if you do that, you can become a varsity sport. And so we became a varsity sport for women and for men and then women. So I gotta thank not only Clem, but our faculty advisor, which was Bob Phillips at the time, the orchestra director. So, but to finish up my presentation, I tell you what, I got to think back, and I got to thank my parents, my grandparents, my aunts and uncles in Iowa, because that's where I'm originally from. And in Iowa, we didn't know how to play the soccer game, let alone what a soccer ball looked like. Okay, so I had to kind of learn that as we went along. But I thank them for raising me the way they did in Iowa. Got to thank my wife Barb, who, I mean, when we started the association, she did all the paperwork. She was all behind the scenes. I was just what they called a face man at that time. And she did so much work, and she's been behind me for everything that I've done. And I certainly appreciate that. And I love you, Barb, and I can't say enough about that, okay? Got to thank the two sons, okay? Ian and Sean. I tell you what, they played soccer, but they had to take a lot of grief because we were looking at tons of kids, helping tons of kids play soccer. So they kind of took it on the chin now and again, but I'm proud of the men that they've both become, and they're both still coaching soccer at Saline High School. And I'd like to thank Mandy, Sean's wife, and our granddaughters, Emmy, Kaylin, and Izzy, for allowing me the chance to go full circle. From 1989, when we first started the league, to right now, I've got a chance to go back and play on the fields with the little players, and I get just a big kick out of that. That's for darn sure. And, finally, the foundation has done so much great work. And again, I thank them for allowing me, and I don't even know who nominated me. I don't know what was in their head. But I thank them for allowing me to be part of this distinguished Hall of Fame class of this year. And I thank the community of Saline for allowing me to do everything that we've done with regards to soccer. So, thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Last but certainly not least here tonight is Sam Schwartz. Sam is a 1995 graduate of Saline Area Schools. And, as Bob Phillips talked about, some of the things that we're trying to do as a school district today, trying to teach our students skills that will allow them to be successful in life beyond the classroom. Sam is as good an example as we could come up with. A few years ago, I came to work one day and there was a wrapped present on my desk, and I picked it up and it was kind of heavy, I didn't know what it was, so I unwrapped it. It was a big something, but I won't say it because there's young kids in here, brick of soap. And if you go on the Duke Buchanan website, you'll see what this brick of soap was. And so as I often do when I don't know something, I immediately went online and looked up Buchanan and was amazed to see some of the things that Sam and his business partners have done. And so as we, as a foundation, recognize individuals who've done exemplary things in their field, This is a really neat opportunity for us to introduce to our student body somebody who's not a whole lot older than they are, that has accomplished great things at a relatively young age. So without further ado, stand forward.
Thank you so much, Kurt. I do apologize if I run a little long or if I'm a little verbose. If you know my family, you know it's hereditary. These horses like to talk. Thank you so much for being here. It's just such an honor to be surrounded by people that have had such a positive impact on my life. I will be honest with you guys. When I first got the call and I saw some of the former recipients and I saw the members of this year's class, it was hard to feel like I belong. I mean, I sell a bar of soap with a swear word on it. Say what it is. And, you know, I've seen firsthand some of the accomplishments of this year's recipients. I think of like Mr. Phillips and Mrs. Native. And if I accomplished a fraction of what they had in their career, I will consider that just a huge success. I had Mr. Johnson for social studies in 9th grade. It's hard to remember a teacher who had more passion and empathy than Mr. Johnson. And of course, it all started with Mrs. Morrow. My entire journey through the Saline school system started with my first grade teacher, and they say, you know, you're not supposed to remember a lot when you're 5 or 6, but I remember her patience and her kindness like it was yesterday. And I've often believed that like life is like a series of dominoes, and one event, one positive event usually begets another. And I think about it, I not had Mrs. Morrow, or if I hadn't had Mrs. Patton, Mrs. Swanson, and Mrs. Schumann, would I be in a position to stand here today? And I'm not sure. What I am sure of is that when you have 2 amazing parents and you spend 13 years in the Saline school system, you have every opportunity to succeed. And I remain so grateful for the opportunity I've been given. In the days leading up to tonight, I've been very introspective. I've been thinking about what is it about a great teacher that has such a positive impact on your life. And I think it breaks down into 3 buckets. One is a teacher confers knowledge. They make you smart at the very basic level. And I've often felt like I've never been smarter in my life when I walked out of that much smaller, as we've established, Saline High School down the road. I could graph lines and determine the slope of lines. I could tell you the atomic number of boron. I spoke a little Spanish. That was kind of dangerous. And I'll admit that some of that knowledge has been lost to posterity, but I think I've retained enough of the critical stuff to get by. I will tell you, Mrs. Weintraub, that I'm still very adept at using the semicolon, even if it feels like no one in the world uses punctuation anymore. I think on a deeper level, a great teacher imparts more than knowledge. I think they teach you how to think. Mr. Smith, he might have been charged with teaching history, but he taught me how to think critically about the events of today, which is clearly very important. Mr. Johnson, Mr. DiPaolo taught me how to think independently and open-mindedly and to question authority when appropriate. Certainly not Mr. Corona's authority. Authority of government. Also very helpful today. Mrs. Converse, Dr. Hasberger, Mrs. Rubel, and Mrs. Moore taught me more than just debate, math, and science. They taught me how to think with structure and logic. They taught me how to break down complex problems, and I use that every single day. And Mrs. Emlaw taught me not only what Shakespeare was talking about, but she taught me how to appreciate great literature. And that also is very valuable today. I think we all agree the world is a little bit more complex than it was 23 years ago, and it's because of my teachers, I think I'm armed with the critical thinking skills to make sense of it. The third, and perhaps most important way teachers have impacted my life is a bit harder to explain, so please bear with me. Like many kids in high school, I was trying to figure out what I was all about. To be frank, I wasn't the best at sports, art, music, and Mr. Phillips can attest to that. I wasn't the smartest student in the room. Where I tried to establish my identity, frankly, was through humor and creative expression. And whether that was writing skits for AP history or veering slightly off topic during the morning announcements, I always tried to bring just a little bit of levity into the classroom, though never in a disruptive way. And this form of creative expression was never discouraged. In fact, I felt like teachers like Mrs. Moore and Mr. Smith, Mr. Johnson, especially Mrs. Thomas, they allowed me to bring my best self to the classroom. I think they saw a spark, and instead of dousing that spark, they let it flourish. And I think that's a key reason why I stand here today and why I sell a product whose name I can't repeat. Just a few other teachers I'd like to thank. First, my mom, a Celine teacher for over 35 years. She not only taught me third grade math, which I have retained, fortunately, she taught me a number of valuable lessons as well. She taught me the value of hard work, and that the hours a teacher spends in a classroom are only a fraction of the hours a teacher truly works. She also taught me how to find humor in life. She's one of the funniest people I know, and I'm so fortunate to have inherited her sense of humor. My dad taught me how to keep my head down and swing easy, which I think was a lesson in golf, but also a metaphor for life. When I had a quarter-life crisis and decided I wanted to flip houses for a living during the recession, my dad didn't talk me out of it. He drove 4 hours with a new miter saw and he taught me how to frame a wall. And most importantly, he's been a model for what it is to be a good man and a good husband. Finally, I'd like to acknowledge my beautiful wife, Michelle. If I have been lucky in life, there's probably no greater symbol of that than the fact that I married someone way out of my league. She's my best friend, and without her support and daily encouragement, there's no way we could have pursued our entrepreneurial dreams. In closing, thankfully, I want to thank Kurt, Amherst, Mrs. Melcher, to whatever extent you had in me being here, I'm so grateful. Thank you for putting on such a wonderful event. I believe there's a lot of I need to accomplish in my career, and I think this night reinforces it, and I will do everything I can to make my alma mater and my community proud.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give these 7 inductees who are here tonight one collective round. We often debate the timing of this event. For those of us who work in schools, this isn't probably the easiest time of the year to put on an event like this. But when you get here on Saturday night and you hear the inductees talk, it truly is inspiring. It gives energy that will carry us through the remaining 171 days that are left. If I could at this point, what I'd like to do is ask this year's nominees to go down the hall to the right before everybody else is dismissed, and Tran will take some pictures down there. So if our 7 nominees could head right down the hall here, I promise you the rest of the group will catch up with you in just a minute. This is also one of those live and learn things. The first year we dismissed everybody together. It took us about 30 minutes to get those people down there to take some pictures. So. As they walk down there, I'll let you know a couple things. Number one, those flags will be permanently displayed down there. So anytime you are visiting the high school, please do stop by and look at those plaques, as well as the plaques honoring the other 30-some people that are there. Our alumni committee will begin accepting nominations for next year's class in January. And there's an online form at the foundation's website. You can feel free to go on there and nominate anybody. Again, we look for distinguished alumni, distinguished educators, or distinguished service people that we can recognize. Last but not least, you can see the impact that these people have had on our community and our district. And a lot of people made a reference to the fact that the high school used to be smaller and that we had a Class A experience in a Class B school. We do strive every day to get better. It's important to us. It's foundational in who we are and how we do business. And it is really neat for us to be able to see folks who literally set this district on that pathway. And so we take great pride in our accomplishments, which is why we have chosen to have this Hall of Fame. So as you exit tonight, I would ask you to turn in your name badges. Tran has volunteered to take pictures not only of those individuals, but if you as family members or friends want to take group shots with them, you're welcome to do that too. We will help you out with that. And obviously you can take pictures of your own. But on behalf of the Foundation for Saline Area Schools, I certainly congratulate these newly enshrined people and thank you for your time tonight. Have a great night.